everyone, and thank you, Lord, for inviting me. And the gentleman earlier with the invocation, sir, I don't know your name.
Carl.
Carl? Carl, you said something that still is resonating in me, that every good thing comes from God. That's, wow. That's my life.
No, keep going.
Okay, I entered in the middle. I went to Rutgers, and as a Rutgers student in 1985 when I graduated high school, I was wondering that summer, what am I going to do with my life? I want to do something that is going to give something to me, but it's going to give something back to this country because, I'm an immigrant. I came from Cuba in 1970, and I always felt like, my life could have been so different had I grown up there, and no comparison. So I always like to give back to those I help. I'm a very grateful individual. So I joined the Army Reserves while I was still in college. And then I went, when I graduated college, I went overseas. I'm trying to think in my head how it happened all. First I applied to different agencies, and I got hired in the Middlesex County Prosecutor's Office as an agent, which is not a police officer, and what I wanted to do was narcotics. And so I waited, and time passed, and then the Persian Gulf conflict came up, and so I volunteered. Now, I'm leaving a big chunk out of one of the reasons why I volunteered, but I will explain it once I get in there. So once I'm overseas, I'm a volunteer from New Jersey, so put this in your head. There's like 13 of us from the Northeast. You don't know where you're going to be assigned. So I was assigned to a unit that was very backwoods, very rural, Virginia, redneck, in a negative way, because I have some redneck friends that are nice people, but these were not. A lot of them were not. So they didn't like us. This is the first time I was ever called a Yankee. So if we all would have been there, we would have all been Yankees. But at least it would have been a group of us, so we could have been stronger together. But there were only 11 of us, and it was New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, and Philadelphia. So therein began the problems. And they began with sexual harassing me, And, here in Jersey, we're very upfront. We're very vocal. If somebody's bothering us, we say, listen, cut the beep, Now, if they continue, we had a policy in the military where you could go see your first sergeant, and you don't have to go through your chain of command. And I explained that to him. And the man, chewing his tobacco, said to me, well, Torres, you're a good-looking soldier. You're going to have these problems. And that was his way of handling it. So I knew that I wasn't going to get any help. And I knew it was going to get worse once we went overseas. So I went to that one individual who continued to harass me. The other one stopped. And boy, I had him out like a truck driver. That's what I was, but it was really bad. And I told him a couple of things, and he stopped. But then we go overseas, now the problem escalates. And it was like continuous. And then one of my best friends, they had a problem with him being my best friend because he was big, he was black, he was from North Carolina. We don't care. We're from Jersey. We don't care who our best friend is. You could have purple blood and you could have 3 eyes. If you have integrity, and that's the person that's going to back you up, that's going to be your best friend. So it kept getting worse. I went all the way to Army Central Command, which is in charge of the whole theater of operations in Desert Storm. I saw a full bird plane, nobody did anything. So I got my mom and my sister involved with senators in their states, and finally they went and sent an Army investigator up there. Yes, my allegations were substantiated, but we were coming home. So it's typical bureaucracy wherein nobody does anything. The person there's a whistleblower policy that's supposed to be there to protect you. It does not protect you. It just singles you out as you're the one that's coming forward with what is being wrong, what is being done wrong. And now they retaliate against you. And anybody who's in law enforcement and military who has stood up for something that's wrong, knows exactly how it is. And it's really like a slippery slope because they do it in such a way where you can't even say, okay, yeah, this is what it is, because it's so intelligent the way they do it. So I come home, and then I'm done with my service, and I'm thankful if I could do it all over again, I would, no doubt, even though I went through difficult times. Because it made me such a better person, and it formed such tight relationships with the few soldiers I was friends with. It's second to none. I can never explain that, and I am so indebted to those three individuals who did stand up for me. So I come home, and then what I want to do is narcotics. So I put in my resume in 22 counties minus Middlesex, because Middlesex, they wouldn't hire me when I came back. I said, listen, either you make me an investigator or I'm walking. And they gave me the usual bureaucracy, you got to be here 3 years. And I know that's not true, because people got hired. We all know that's not true. But it's law enforcement, what can you do? So I said, all right, I'm leaving. And then I just moved on and kept moving from place to place where I loved what I did. It was such a high, and it was exciting to have your life on the balance where you got to think quick. You got to come up with an answer so quickly, and you have to be convincing with your answer. I wish I could do it all over again. It was great. And then I would want to say in 2001, but throughout the years, I would say from 94 to 2001, odd things would happen to me where I'm running after a suspect, and all of a sudden I'm not running straight, I'm running diagonally and moving back and forth, and I have no control. And I'm going up the stairs in a raid, and my leg, I can't move my leg up. So I finally go see a neurologist, and she says, well, you have MS. Now, then I'm like, okay, well, where did I get this? And sure enough, the government tells you we were not exposed to chemical agents overseas, but we were. I was exposed to sarin and cyclosarin nerve agents, and years later we get a letter from the Pentagon that says you were exposed to low levels, which explains what it is. And I normally carry my cane, but the other day I was looking for it in my car, I didn't see it, and I said, well, I guess God doesn't think I need it today. So I'm walking in faith, and I'm expecting my healing. Now, let me get you back a little bit. So in high school, I was sexually assaulted by my prom date, who put something in my drink after prom. In Jersey, you always go down the shore. Well, he was my friend, well, presumed friend, right? And I had no recollection of what happened. I was out the whole time, and I just came to maybe for a couple of seconds when I saw him on top of me. And I remember saying to get off, but I had really slurred speech. So that totally put me in a different world where you're as, okay, who could you tell that's gonna help you, that's gonna point you in the right direction, who is not gonna blame you, who's not gonna say you're typical, well, who told you to drink? Or who told you to go there? That kind of stuff. So I said nothing for 10 years, because I knew my family wasn't gonna back me up, because they were very old school. Education is key. Education is key, man, because it just broadens. And if you're not familiar with something, or you don't know how to help someone, well, then you go find someone who can help them. Because what it did to me was it just shut me down. It made me become combatant, which is why I went in the military. So it made me want to empower myself. And I'm glad, Sir Carl, I'm glad that you said that, because God turned that for good. I could have gotten into drugs, I could have gotten into alcohol, I could have gotten into prostitution, I could have gone in so many ways. And were it not for him, I don't know where I'd be. So whenever I get to speak at schools, I always talk about this, because we always say, oh, it's not going to happen to me, right? Like I said that to myself, oh, that's not going to happen. Who's going to do that? And there I am. And then you always have the question from people, well, why do you report it? Let's talk. Let's go back to 1985. I would have been blamed. You're a female, you go down the shore, you spend the night. I was a virgin. I'm not going to have sex with somebody who's just my friend. I didn't have sex with my high school sweetheart who gave me the ultimatum because I wanted to do the right thing by my mom. You're raised in a single parent household. You see your mother working all these crazy hours trying to support the family. How could you go home and tell your mother one day, oh, Mom, I'm pregnant? Are you kidding me? I'd rather just die at that moment than disappoint my mother who worked so hard. Even though years later she didn't back me up, But it's the premise. So it's very important. That's why when I have a daughter, and when she was 12, I explained to her what was going on, because I was living in California, and I met a man who was a producer and actor. And he was interested in me writing my books. That's how my books came out, because he wanted to make a movie out of it. So I finally got the books done. But I told him I need to tell my daughter about a couple of things. She didn't know. And I said, I can't write. I feel like I'd be betraying her. So I explained this to her, and her her response was so perfect. She said, "Mom, I haven't lost any respect for you. On the contrary, I have more because you could have gotten down the wrong path and you didn't." And the other thing I told her about was, well, with her dad, was that we were divorced because of domestic violence, which is another thing, right? Here I am, a police officer. Again, you don't think it happens to you, but it does happen in law enforcement families. And you think, what? I mean, what am I gonna do? My ex-husband was like 6'1", 240. He was martial artist. He was badass, you know? And I knew that I had no competition. I could not do anything to protect myself. So I didn't report it right away because I knew, again, with the law, a final restraining order is not gonna keep someone from killing me. And when I get my divorce, I have to ensure full custody. I'm not sharing custody with a nut job. So I had to endure a couple of more incidents, and whether it's verbal or physical abuse, because I was noting things. And by the time I finished, I had like 43 witnesses. So I was happy my case was slam dunk. But you wonder, you say to yourself, how could I be in this situation? Why can't I do anything about it? And domestic violence is so tricky because it starts out so slow. You don't even know you're being thrown in that situation until all of a sudden you're like, what? You know, it's the alienation process too with your friendships. So, I mean, I'm so thankful. And Carl, again, thank you, because today, like, me and my ex-husband, we talk. We actually have a civil relationship. And now he's involved in my daughter's life where he wasn't before. And my former rapist, I've confronted him. I've tried to get him to fill in the gaps. He won't. Last time I spoke to him, he said he had no interest in speaking to me and no interest in answering my questions. But you know what? That's not my job. That's God's job to take care of him. Because I'm okay with it. It's done. And what I do is try to turn things around, anything negative that was in my life, to then tell the younger people, men and women. Because in the military, for example, 1 in 100 men are raped, and 1 in 4 women. Those are the statistics today. And those are the ones that are reported. And domestic violence does also occur to men. So whenever I go and speak somewhere, I always have people afterward that share things with me, some who have never told anyone. And to me, that's how I know that I'm doing my job. Where if I could just tell someone and let them know, hey, listen, this is not your fault. It's not on you, it's on that person. That's basically it. So now all I'm waiting on now is my dream of my books either becoming a movie or an HBO series, so that I can have this huge, what I would love is to have a building where runaways or abuse victims, people like at risk, can go to and stay there a certain amount of time, so they can then empower themselves or have a job where maybe they did not, and they can move forward with their lives. And that's basically it. So I'll take questions.
You're awesome. That's all I have. I'm in tears, really. You go through a lot. Proud of you.
Yes, ma'am.
Was your ex-husband a police officer as well?
No, he was a police officer in Cuba. He worked corrections and he was in the military in Cuba, not here. Which was a good thing, because he probably would have known what to do to get around things.
I was wondering that. My mother went through a similar experience and was having trouble, I guess, inherently, because she didn't want to file a restraining order because she would have lost his job.
Right.
And she didn't want to, cut him off the knees, I guess. She didn't want to make him incapable of providing either. So I was wondering if you went through that same dilemma.
Yeah, no, thank God I didn't. But I did, he was never arrested. And at the time, you don't question the police officer and say, well, why didn't you make the arrest? Because you're so sure you just want to end things.
Right.
But to this day, I wonder why he wasn't arrested with there were visible injuries. And I've asked several cops, and they're like, I don't know, who knows? Who knows is not an answer. Yes, ma'am.
Were you in a support group or anything like that?
Excuse me?
Were you in a support group? Sorry.
No.
Like that?
No, I just went to, at the time I was with DEA, I was assigned to them, and they have it where you have to see a counselor. So I did see a counselor, and then I went to one domestic violence thing at the courthouse that you have to go through before you get your divorce, but no. But I did learn that children do remember that, because I'll get back to you. My child was a year maybe at the time of the second incident, And I learned that the children do have that in their memory, and when they get older, even though they could be a year old, even months, if a similar situation comes up where they feel that, the brain automatically kicks in and they're remembering that incident. That's when I know I gotta get out of this. Yes, ma'am?
You referenced your faith several times. Have you forgiven the perpetrators?
Yes, and it took me a long time because I was angry. You know, when I confronted him 10 years later, I said in my book, I said, I don't know what I would have done if I had my gun on my hip.
Shoot him.
You know, yes, that's how I felt, because there's no excuse. So, and God kept me from that. Just like when I was overseas, I set out one night to kill my captain because I was tired of all the abuse and nobody doing nothing. And then I thought everybody was asleep, but there was one guy, one platoon sergeant, who happened to be mine, and he saw me. He just walked me back to my tent. Otherwise, I'd be in the brig. But I see that God was always there, even though you're not thinking He's there at the time. But when you're older, like all of us, we reflect.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
But you know, forgiveness is about yourself.
Yes.
And once you forgive yourself, it becomes easy to forgive the perpetrator.
Yes, and that was key too, because you say to yourself,
You blame yourself.
yes, because you say, well, why did I trust that individual to go there? But I had no signs not to. I mean, the dude was a perfect gentleman at the prom. I didn't even speak to him the entire prom. And then I'm talking to a cop friend, and he's like, sure, he did that to set up your trust. So later when he says, let's go down the shore, you have no reason to say no. But you're not thinking that. You're 18. So yeah, so I did forgive myself, and I'm like, listen, Jules, there's nothing you could have done. You did what you could, and that's it.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
There we go.
Oh, I know, sorry. I just can't.
Oh, hold on. Can I get on this? Yeah.
Well, I'll take one with
Oh.
and one without. Go ahead.
Okay.
Okay, and now you can get it. Good, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Good, you got it, hon?
One second.
Oh, those are the tickets.
Yeah, that's okay. We'll pick up.
They're really big.
Sorry.
Hang on, you got it.
That's right. That's right.
I got it.
I can't send you.